Hi, I'm the Grow Boss. I write the Grow Book and Equipment Guide, and in this video I'm going to demonstrate some things you need to know about fans and filters to help you get a better idea of how they work, because there seems to be some confusion about when to use them and how much you really need. Okay, so the number one question you guys ask me about venting is, how big a fan should I buy? Which is actually a reasonable question, but not the one you should be asking, because there are only two factors that you're going to base your fan buying decision on, and that's how important is removing the smell, and are you venting the air or recirculating it? But before we go on, you should know, this is one of several short videos in a series about setting up your garden. There is a long video that covers everything you need to know about venting and cooling and adding CO2. But there are also a bunch of shorter videos like this that cover the individual topics too.
And the best place to start is with what's in it. And it's charcoal, just like the charcoal in a fish tank filter. Sure, there are different grades of charcoal, and that might be reflected in the cost and quality of the filter, but they all work in exactly the same way. The pores on the surface of the charcoal capture the odor molecules as they pass through. It filters the air just like it filters the water. And of course, the slower the air, the more time it spends in contact with the charcoal, and the more odor gets filtered out. Which is why my Grow Book and my No More Grow More cards show you exactly that. A small fan on a big filter works way better at capturing those odor molecules than a big fan on a small filter, and why I always tell you the one and done vent like this requires way more filter and way less fan than a garden recirculating the same air over and over like this. Because if you're venting a one and done situation, you only have that one shot at removing the odor molecules. You probably want a bigger filter with a smaller fan because you want that extra contact time before it forever leaves your garden. Remember, the slower the air, the greater the contact time, the better the chance the odor gets filtered out.
So let's look at some fan filter combos now, and to do that, let's start by comparing several different sized fans sucking from the same filter. We'll mark down how far they pull, and that'll give us a baseline and something to compare and talk about. So let's look at a couple of fan filter combos now, and let's start by comparing several different sized fans sucking from the same filter. That way we can get a baseline and something to compare and talk about. And then I'm going to show you something that'll blow your mind. Alright, so let's start with a 4-inch fan just for fun, and you can see not much smoke is getting absorbed. Nothing down here for sure. And listen to the sound the fan makes. Okay, so this is the Vortex 600L. It does about 235 CFM, and you can see it's starting to absorb the smoke. Not too much down here. Yeah, so we'll mark the 6-inch right about here. The Vortex 6L, 235 cubic feet. All right, now this is where it starts to get interesting. Just listen to the difference in that fan. That's a lot more motor. And you'll notice the diameter on the Vortex 6 is much bigger than the 600L. So this fan's doing 400 and about 50 CFM. And that's a big difference already. This is where the 6L left off. Look at that. Just about all the smoke is getting absorbed. You can see it coming out of the fan. And I know you think there might be a leak right here, but look. Nothing in particular, right? Like nothing that you'd notice. But it sure does pull a lot further. Another 200 cubic feet, right? That seems to be about its sweet spot right there. Alright, this is the Vortex 8-inch. And at 750 CFM, you can really see the difference. Right? The smoke's much further away. It's pulling all of it in. I ran that blue tape down so you could get a visual reference on it. And it's pulling it all the way down to here. Okay, so this is the Vortex 8-inch inline. It's just an 8-inch smaller than the 10. You can really hear the difference. And just like a duct fan doesn't move air the same way a centrifugal fan does, the Vortex jet fan doesn't move air the same way the Vortex centrifugal fan does. Okay, so what have we learned so far? We've tested the 4, 6, and 8-inch fans. We even tested that 8S, which pulls as much as the Vortex 10. You can see way down here, right? But it doesn't pull all the way down. There's this gradient. It pulls mostly here, a little less here, and finally the less at the bottom. And we're not even all the way down to the bottom. Now, the 10-inch Vortex approaches about 900 cubic feet, right? So it makes sense, because if we look at what the Pro 150 is rated for, it's 1300 CFM, and it gives you a contact time. So those fans are too small for this. Sure, the filter will last longer, but you're not really using the filter, which is why Vortex came up with the reversible filter. So now, all we have to do to go from an 8 to a 10, take out the top ring, put the 10-inch ring in, lock it down, put our fan on it, and we're ready to go with the appropriate filter. All right, this is the 10-inch fan. Listen to it. All right, this is the S10 series. It's 1135 CFM, and you can see the smoke's getting sucked in all the way down here. That's a big difference than the other ones. And remember, the S series doesn't pull air. It doesn't make air the same way as the V series. All right, so this is the Vortex 6-inch 450 cubic foot fan blowing into the filter. And even here, you can already tell it's blowing it all the way down to the bottom, because blowing into the filter is not the same thing as sucking from it. Now, with an 8-inch fan, it pulls all the way down to here, but still, like the top 5% of the filter is doing 95% of the work. Which is exactly why I used to tell you to wrap the top third of your filter in plastic like this after a year or so. Because most of you are using like a 4, 6, or 8-inch fan, right? Like a Vortex, just the V series. So this filter would have been plenty enough, right? And if the top 5% is doing 95% of the work, then after a year, if you wrapped it like this, the filter should be new again, right? And that's also why I always told you to buy more filter than you needed. But now, with Vortex new reversible system, that's not true anymore. This seems silly. And we're doing this used to be an excellent place to save yourself some money. Today's filters are so cheap, and they're so awesome, and the charcoal works for so long, especially when you buy a little more filter than you need.
The same is not true, however, if we flip the fan over and blow into the filter. Now you can really see the difference, yeah? Now it blows air all the way out to the bottom. In fact, the better filters even have a little cone down there to help to keep the airflow laminar. See, when you blow into a filter like this, it spreads the air throughout the entire filter in a way that sucking from it doesn't. And while this is a much more effective way to use the filter, it certainly won't last as long. And sooner, rather than later, you're going to catch a whiff of your garden when you walk up to your door. You know what I mean.
And for the record, builders be warned, I will not sell you loose charcoal to refill your carbon filters with, you cheap fucks. These things are mechanically shaken and packed at the factory, and there is no way I am bringing in a case of dirty carbon into my store just so you can save $15. I would rather give you a sick deal on a new one if you're that committed. Besides, these things aren't that expensive anymore, and they're awesome. Okay, this is a Vortex filter, and now let me show you why I used to tell you to wrap your filters in the top third with plastic, and you're going to be like, oh shit, why doesn't every manufacturer do that, right? The Vortex filters are now reversible. All you have to do is take the top end cap off, lean it back, take the bottom end cap off, flip the filter over, put the end caps where the other ones used to be, and bam, brand new filter. Like, ta-da! Why doesn't every manufacturer do that, right? Because who the fuck wants to wrap their filter in plastic like this? And now it doesn't matter what filter you buy. You just buy the speed and the cubic feet per minute flow you need and the fan that matches it, and then you just put any one of their caps, a 12-inch, a 10-inch, an 8-inch, onto their filter. And if you want to move more air, because you're recirculating it over and over, all you have to do is get a bigger Vortex adapter cap, put it on the filter, get yourself a bigger fan, and top it with a bigger 90. And since we know only the top 10% of the filter is actually being used, we also know that years down the road, when you start to catch whiffs of your garden, you could just pop the end caps off, flip the filter over, and get years more use out of it. And if you are using a filter in your final vent before you send your garden air out into the world, then when you start to catch whiffs of your garden outside your house, you should know you have to replace this filter. But that's okay, because this filter is not done yet. Now, just buy yourself a new one to replace that one, and take that one, and instead of throwing it away, just take the end caps off, flip it over, and instead move it inside the tent where it can finish its life out, scrubbing and recirculating the same air over and over. What? Growing weed is expensive and dangerous, and anywhere you can save some money, decrease exposure, or increase stealth is always worth taking advantage of. What? I love reducing costs. I can admit it, I got the OCD. And I know manufacturers love to put all sorts of facts and figures on their packaging, but I figure if I want slow air, I'll just put a 6-inch fan on an 8-inch filter. Remember, if you're doing the same air over and over, you don't need as much fan filter as you would if you were doing a one and done like this, because something like this, where you only filter the air once on its way out, even if you set an Onagel down in the bottom of your Vortex filter, you always want the smallest fan and the biggest filter you can afford, because you only get the one chance to remove that odor molecule. That's why a fan filter in a tent like this, where it's recirculating the same air over and over, you don't need as much filter because it's constantly lowering the odor count. And once you realize that you want a smaller fan like this, a small tent like this will become super stealthy. Check it out. Not bad, right? And that's because you're venting properly now. And by properly, I mean the least amount of air necessary. In fact, done like this, it's actually even stealthy. I mean, except for the big black box and the fan filter in your living room with the occasional smell of weed. That's why you have to understand all the details about venting. Because if you don't have a clear plan before you start buying shit, and you have to buy stuff twice because you didn't understand what you were buying or how to use it or what you were trying to accomplish, then this project is gonna get expensive in a hurry. Okay, I'm the Grow Boss. I write the Grow Book and Equipment Guide and the No More Grow More Fat cards. And if you want to buy my books or my cards, you can get them at your local hydro store, eBay, Amazon, or my website, thegrowboss.com. And if you still have questions and you still want help, you can call my hotline. It's $49 an hour. You can sign up for it on my website. We'll exchange pictures. I'll help you get your garden where it should be. All right, if you liked the video, don't forget to click the like button, share it with a friend, leave a comment, and buy my books. Thanks for watching.